Winter is the time when the world is transformed into a fairy tale, and every corner of nature becomes like a magical landscape from ancient legends. Snow-covered forests, icy waterfalls, mountain peaks covered with snow-white blanket, all this draws us into the atmosphere of silence and wonders. In this video, we will go on a journey through 60 winter wonders of nature, which seem to come out of the most beautiful and mysterious fairy tales. These are places where snow turns the world into something incredible, and every step on this white blanket is like a step into another mysterious dimension. Get ready to meet places that make your heart beat faster with admiration and beauty. In winter, Finland's forests turn into a snowy fairy tale. Trees, especially spruce and pine trees, are covered with a thick layer of fluffy snow and hoarfrost, turning into bizarre figures that Finns call snow idols. Under their weight, branches bow to the ground, creating snow-white arches and tunnels. Absolute silence reigns, broken only by the crunch of snow underfoot. The sun, if it appears, sparkles on billions of crystals, and it seems that you are in an enchanted kingdom where time has stopped. Lapland, stretching across the northern parts of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia, in winter becomes the embodiment of a Christmas dream. The vast expanse of snow covered with a layer of sparkling snow, the low northern sun coloring the sky in soft pink and orange tones, and the frosty air create a magical atmosphere. It is the home of Santa Claus, home to reindeer, and the perfect place to watch the northern lights dancing in the sky. Winter Lapland is a world of silence, cold and incredible, pure beauty. The island of Hokkaido in northern Japan is famous in winter for its heavy snowfalls and unique winter phenomena. Frosty air from the sea creates the famous snow crystal, fine, dry snow, ideal for skiing. However, it's not just the slopes that attract. Sparkling snowscapes, frozen waterfalls, bizarre ice sculptures on the coast of the Sea of Okhotsk, created by drifting ice, and hot springs, onsen, surrounded by snowdrifts, create a unique combination of warmth and cold. Hokkaido cities host grand snow festivals, transforming them into ice palaces and galleries. In winter, Baikal turns into a giant, crystal-clear ice rink, the largest mirror on the planet. Baikal ice is amazingly transparent, allowing you to see the bottom and rocks many meters deep. Frozen gas bubbles, bizarre cracks forming fractal-like patterns, and frozen hummocks, piles of ice, create surreal landscapes. Grottos and caves with transparent ice stalactites and icicles form on the shore. Traveling along the frozen Baikal on skates, kayaks, or on foot gives a feeling of complete unity with the mighty and beautiful element. The Swiss Alps in winter are a dream come true for winter sports enthusiasts and connoisseurs of mountain scenery. Majestic peaks covered with a thick layer of snow shine under the bright winter sun. The slopes, covered with perfectly prepared pistes, pass into valleys with cozy villages buried in snow. The views from the peaks are breathtaking, endless expanses of snowy peaks, glaciers and clouds beneath your feet. The atmosphere of the Swiss Alps in winter combines luxury and seclusion, adventure and tranquility, creating the feeling of being in fairyland. Iceland's ice caves, formed in the thickness of glaciers, such as Vatnajökull, are some of the most stunning winter wonders. The light penetrating through the thickness of ice colors the walls and vaults of the caves in incredible shades of blue, from soft blue to deep ultramarine. Scales and frozen streams of meltwater form bizarre ice sculptures. Being inside such a cave gives the feeling of being in a crystal palace created by nature itself, where time has slowed down and absolute silence reigns, broken only by the rare crackling of ice. Yosemite National Park in California is transformed in winter. Majestic granite cliffs such as El Capitan and Half Dome are covered with snow caps and hoarfrost patterns. Waterfalls such as Yosemite Falls partially freeze over, becoming giant ice sculptures or continue to tumble down, surrounded by ice crystals. Yosemite Valley, covered in a blanket of snow, becomes incredibly quiet and serene. Winter Yosemite offers solitude and a chance to see the famous landscapes in their rare, frosty, and solemn guise. The picturesque valleys take on a special charm in winter. Covered in a blanket of snow, they look serene and peaceful. The hills and mountains framing the valley take on a soft shape under the snow cover. Rivers may partially or completely freeze over, forming bizarre icy patterns. Snow-covered valleys are often shrouded in mists, adding mystery to the landscape. These are places for peaceful walks and admiring the quiet winter nature, where every snowdrift and branch covered in hoarfrost seems to be part of a fairy tale setting. Small villages high up in the valleys of the Swiss Alps turn into postcards in winter. Cozy chalets with sloping roofs covered with a thick layer of snow, smoke from chimneys, narrow streets buried in snowdrifts, and twinkling window lights against the backdrop of dark snow-capped mountains create an atmosphere of absolute winter magic. These villages seem isolated from the rest of the world, offering peace, quiet, and the opportunity to enjoy the purest mountain air and stunning views right from your window. It is the perfect place to feel the spirit of a true alpine winter. In winter, the Siberian taiga becomes a boundless realm of snow and ice. Millions of square kilometers of coniferous forests are covered with deep, fluffy snow. The silence here is so thick that it rings in the ears. Mighty cedars, spruces, and firs stand wrapped in white coats, creating a labyrinth of snowy corridors and rooms. The sun's rays shining through the branches make the snow sparkle. The Siberian taiga in winter is a place of strength and solitude, where you can feel the majesty and severity of Russian nature, its untouched, pristine beauty. The Western Carpathians, covering parts of Poland, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, and Ukraine, are covered with snow in winter, turning into a picturesque mountain range. Ridges covered with mixed and coniferous forests sparkle under the snow. The peaks become more accessible for winter hiking, offering panoramic views of snow-covered valleys and neighboring mountains. The Carpathians are full of cozy mountain villages that have preserved their traditions and culture. The winter Carpathians offer both opportunities for active recreation, skiing, snowboarding, hiking, and for quiet contemplation of nature in its winter attire. Elbrus, the highest peak in Europe, appears in its most severe and majestic appearance in winter. Its double-headed cone is covered with eternal snow and powerful glaciers, which in winter become even more grandiose. The surrounding slopes of the Caucasus Range are also dressed in white. Winter Elbrus is a challenge for mountaineers, but even just admiring its silhouette from a distance or taking the cable car to the shelters gives a feeling of touching something huge and eternal. The clear winter sky above Elbrus is often piercing blue, emphasizing the whiteness of its snow. In winter, Norway offers an incredible variety of winter landscapes. In the north, there are the endless snowy plains of Finnmark, icy coastlines, and the best place to see the northern lights. In the central part are the majestic snow-capped mountains, ideal for skiing and hiking. To the west are the famous fjords framed by steep, snow-capped mountainsides, creating dramatic and mesmerizing views. Winter Norway is a land of wild, pure nature, where light and color play a special role, especially during the polar night in the north. Sunset in the Yukon Glacier Valley in winter is a spectacle of rare beauty. The low winter sun, moving across the sky for only a few hours, colors the snow-capped mountaintops, valley slopes, and icy surfaces in brilliant shades of pink, orange, purple, and gold. Long shadows from the mountains and trees stretch across the white snow cover, creating contrasting patterns. The frosty air makes the colors incredibly pure and saturated. The silence of the glacial valley during sunset enhances the sense of grandeur and solitude. Fir forests in Russia become truly fairy tale-like in winter. The fluffy branches of fir trees covered with a thick layer of snow lean downward, forming soft white caps. The branches of the lower tiers often touch the ground, creating the feeling of snow caves and shelters. The dense crown of fir trees holds the snow well, and even in windy weather, there is peace inside such a forest. In the silence of a snowy fir forest, it is easy to imagine that you are in a world of magical creatures, and each fir tree is a guardian of the winter kingdom. Hakodate Mountain in Hakodate City, Hokkaido Prefecture, is covered with snow in winter, which makes it particularly picturesque. Although it is not a high mountain peak, its summit offers a spectacular view of Hakodate City, its bays, and the surrounding winter landscape. On a winter evening, this view, especially famous for its beauty, combines the twinkling lights of the city with the white, snow-covered surroundings and the dark waters of the bay to create a romantic and fairy tale-like picture. In Kamchatka, especially in volcanic areas, in winter one can see a unique spectacle: frozen waterfalls. Water flowing down the rocks turns into gigantic, sometimes bizarre ice sculptures, blue and green blocks of ice, icicles, and patina, framing the frozen stream. Some waterfalls freeze completely, while others turn into ice columns with a thin trickle of water inside. Against the backdrop of smoking fumaroles or snow-covered volcanoes, frozen waterfalls create a surreal landscape combining fire and ice. Winter Yalta in Crimea is a special world, different from summer. The city and its surroundings on the south coast of Crimea can be covered with a thin layer of snow, which, unlike in more northern regions, often does not stay for long, but gives the landscape a special tenderness. Palm trees covered with hoarfrost, snow-covered peaks of the Crimean mountains in the background, quiet seafront and the sea, which in winter acquires a special leaden hue, create a unique combination of southern nature and winter mood. Winter mangrove forest in Cuba. Mangrove forests, common in coastal areas of the tropics and subtropics, do not experience a real winter with frost and snow. When it comes to Cuba, winter there just means a cooler and drier season. This is probably a point not in keeping with the winter natural wonders and snow and ice theme. However, even in the cooler times, the mangroves, with their walker roots and abundance of birds, are a unique ecosystem, albeit without the fabulous winter paraphernalia. Snow-covered beaches on the islands of Scotland. Snow-covered beaches on the remote and rugged islands of Scotland are a sight that combines romance and solitude. The white snow contrasts with the dark sand, rocks, and cold waters of the Atlantic. The wind can create bizarre snow patterns on the sand. At this time of year, the beaches are deserted, and one can enjoy the majestic silence and rugged beauty of the North Coast, where waves crash against frozen rocks, and the sky is often a dramatic gray or lit by the low winter sun. Iceland's ice lagoons. Iceland's ice lagoons, such as Jökulsárlón, are some of the most famous winter wonders. Icebergs and blocks of ice that have broken off from glaciers float in these lagoons. The ice comes in a variety of shapes and shades of blue, white, and black due to volcanic ash. In winter, the lagoons may partially freeze over, leaving streaks of water between the blocks of ice. Floating icebergs against the background of snow-capped mountains and glaciers, especially in low sunlight or during the northern lights, create a truly ethereal, fairy tale-like landscape. An icy cascade of waterfalls in Canada. Canada, with its abundance of rivers and mountains, offers many examples of freezing waterfalls. Some of them form majestic ice cascades and columns, bizarre ice curtains and grottos. Water continuing to flow beneath the ice column or jets frozen halfway down create dynamic ice sculptures. Such waterfalls in winter become a destination for ice climbers and photographers, offering a glimpse of the power of water frozen in incredible, often turquoise, ice forms. Winter nature of Patagonia. Patagonia in southern South America in winter, June-August, presents itself in a harsh but impressive way. Mountain peaks, such as Torres del Paine or Fitzroy, are covered in snow. Winds become even stronger and temperatures drop below freezing. At the same time, many glaciers and lakes remain accessible. Winter Patagonia offers unique views of snow-capped peaks, glaciers and fjords with fewer tourists. The landscapes are rugged but dramatic and majestic, reminding you of the pristine power of nature at the edge of the world. Snow-white expanses of Mongolia. In winter, most of Mongolia, a country of vast steppes and mountains, is covered with a thick layer of snow. The frosty air is dry and clear, and the sky is often piercingly blue. The snow cover smooths out the topography, creating monotonous but mesmerizing landscapes that stretch to the horizon. Nomads and their herds of camels and horses moving through these expanses add to the colorfulness. Winter Mongolia is a world of vastness, silence, and rugged beauty, where you can feel the spirit of Asia and feel like a grain of sand in time and space. Cold mountains in Altai. Altai mountains turn into cold mountains in winter. The high ridges are covered with powerful snow and glaciers. The valleys are covered with snow. The frosty air is clear and harsh. Rivers freeze over, forming ice crossings in bizarre patterns. Cedar forests stand dressed in white. Winter Altai is a place for true adventurers and wildlife connoisseurs. Harsh but incredibly beautiful landscapes, silence of mountains and ringing frost create a feeling of being in a fairy tale but inaccessible kingdom. The aurora borealis in Norway is one of the most mystical and fabulous natural phenomena, which in winter is especially visible in high latitudes, including northern Norway. Green, pink, purple, and red, flashes of light dance in the dark polar sky over snow-covered landscapes reflecting in lakes or ice. Watching this celestial dance on a frosty, clear night against the backdrop of silent, snowy expanses is an unforgettable sight that seems to come straight from Scandinavian myths. Snow cover in Scandinavian forests. The forests of Scandinavia, Sweden, Norway, are covered with a deep snow cover in winter. Snow lies on tree branches, on the ground, creating soft, rounded shapes. The branches of birch trees, covered with hoarfrost, look like fragile lace. The sun's rays, breaking through the snowy branches, create a play of light and shadow. Scandinavian forests are quiet and serene in winter, inviting you to take long walks on skis or snowshoes, immersing you in an atmosphere of tranquility and unity with nature. snow-covered fields of the Czech Republic. In winter, the Czech countryside with its hilly fields, forests, and small villages is covered with snow. This creates cozy and picturesque views reminiscent of illustrations from European fairy tales. The snow lies on the fields in an even white blanket. The trees and groves and forest edges are covered with hoarfrost, and the red roofs of the houses in the villages contrast with the white cover. The snow-covered fields of the Czech Republic are a symbol of a quiet, calm, and peaceful winter in the heart of Europe. Arctic coastline in Greenland. Greenland's coastline in winter is a world of ice, snow, and rugged beauty. The rocky shores are covered with snow and ice, with icebergs drifting in the coastal waters. The sea may be partially covered with pack ice. The northern lights often shine over this landscape. The sky may be piercing blue or gray. The nature here is minimalist but grandiose. It is a place where you can feel at the edge of the earth, among the vast expanse of ice and snow, in the silence and cold of the Arctic. Winter snow-covered Tatras. The high Tatras, part of the Carpathian Range on the border of Slovakia and Poland, transforms in winter into one of the most beautiful mountain ranges in Central Europe. Sharp peaks, deep valleys, high mountain lakes covered with ice and snow create stunning panoramic views. The mountain slopes offer opportunities for skiing and winter hiking. The snow-capped Tatras are harsh but majestic and photogenic, reminding you of the power and beauty of the high mountains in winter. Winter Bride Peak, Southern Urals. In winter, Bride Peak in the Southern Urals is covered with snow, and the cliffs are possibly covered with hoarfrost and ice. Views from the summit of the snow-covered Ural ridges in taiga take on a special, stark beauty. The white snow cover smooths out the relief, and the contrast between dark rocks, if they are not completely covered with snow, and the white background enhances the drama of the landscape. Climbing such a peak in winter, if you have the necessary preparation, gives you a feeling of victory over the elements and an opportunity to see the Ural expanses in their winter appearance. Red sand dunes covered with snow, Namibia. The red sand dunes of Namibia, such as those in the Sossusvlei area, are a famous natural sight. Their bright orange and red color contrasts with the blue sky. Snow hardly ever falls in this region. However, if one were to imagine a fantasy scenario where the red dunes are covered with a thin layer of white snow, it would be a truly surreal sight. The stark contrast of warm red and cold white, the soft shapes of the dunes flecked with snow. It would be a natural wonder from the realm of the fantastic for this region. The winter valley of the Sog River, Scandinavia. The Sog River, Sonja Fjord in Norway, is not a river in a valley, but Norway's largest and deepest fjord. In winter, Sonja Fjord and its offshoots, such as Narøy Fjord, a UNESCO site, are surrounded by steep, snow-covered mountainsides. The water in the fjord remains unfrozen, reflecting the harsh winter skies and majestic mountains. A winter fjord is a world of silence and majesty, where you can float on calm water while admiring snowy peaks, waterfalls, some of which freeze over, and cozy beach houses. The ice forest in Sweden is an amazing natural phenomenon that can be observed in some parts of the country, especially in areas with lakes and rivers. Under certain weather conditions, such as fog and sub-zero temperatures, the trees become covered with a thick layer of frost or ice. Such a forest acquires fantastic shapes. Branches and needles sparkle in the sun, and the forest itself looks fragile and unreal, as if it was woven of glass and diamonds. This is a place where every step on the snowy surface sounds like silence, interrupted only by the slight rustle of the wind. Vassen waterfall in Norway transforms into a grandiose ice structure in winter. Many waterfalls, including Vassen, freeze over during the cold season, becoming stunning natural ice compositions that glow blue and white ice against a backdrop of snow-covered cliffs. Some waterfalls remain active, but their water continues to flow beneath the ice shell, creating a unique combination of movement and static. The sight of frozen waterfalls leaves a lasting impression, showing the power of nature in its icy guise. The snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas, the greatest mountain system on Earth, are even more majestic in winter. The 8,000-meter peaks and other peaks, covered in a thick layer of snow and ice, shine in the bright high mountain sun, surrounded by clouds. The views of these snow giants are breathtaking and a reminder of the majesty of nature, creating an atmosphere of extreme cold and silence. This place is accessible only to experienced mountaineers, but even in the foothills, you can see stunning views of snow-capped peaks, which is a real challenge for trekking enthusiasts. Lake Ladoga, Europe's largest freshwater lake, transforms into a snowy and frozen world in winter. Its coastal forests and marshes are covered with snow and ice, while hummocks and splash ice appear in the water itself. Karelian forests, standing in snow-white attire and frozen bogs forming bizarre ice patterns, create a harsh but incredibly beautiful landscape. These natural pictures give a feeling of wild, untouched nature and deep tranquility. Norway's snow-capped fjords are one of the most recognizable winter wonders. Steep cliffs covered in forest and snow plunge sharply into the dark waters of the fjords. Winter waterfalls freeze into ice columns, and the calm waters of the fjords reflect the majestic mountain scenery. In the small villages by the water, you can feel the human presence in this grand natural setting. Traveling through Norway's winter fjords is an immersive experience of beauty, peace, and majesty. The snowy mountains of the Canadian Rockies in winter become the perfect destination for winter sports enthusiasts. Majestic peaks, powerful glaciers, high-altitude lakes covered in snow, and coniferous forests create incredible landscapes that are mesmerizing in their pristine beauty. National parks such as Banff and Jasper provide excellent conditions for skiing, snowboarding, winter hiking, and wildlife watching. These mountains symbolize the wild and beautiful winter nature of North America. The snow-capped valleys of Tibet become unique and harsh in wintertime. The majestic snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas and other ranges against the blue sky make the Tibetan valleys peaceful and quiet. Rare villages, monasteries, and stupas wrapped in snow seem to be part of the eternal landscape. Winter Tibet is a place where nature and culture intertwine to create an atmosphere of silence, spirituality, and contemplation. Ice Palace in Finland is a unique temporary structure created annually from snow and ice. Architects and sculptors build majestic structures, including hotel rooms, restaurants, and chapels that are decorated with ice sculptures. In this palace, the blue light penetrating through the ice walls, the whimsical shapes of the sculptures, and the atmospheric feeling of being inside a crystal fortress create a fairy tale atmosphere. This place becomes a real miracle for those who dare to take this unique journey. There are many rivers in Kamchatka that freeze in winter, forming bizarre ice covers. Depending on the activity of the river and the presence of thermal springs, the ice can be of different thickness and structure. Ice and ice piles form on rapids and rapids. In areas with geothermal activity, river sections may remain unfrozen, creating a contrast of hot water and steam with the surrounding ice and snow. Kamchatka's frozen rivers become an integral part of the peninsula's harsh and beautiful winter landscape. New Zealand, despite its southern hemisphere location, is home to majestic glaciers such as Franz Josef and Fox. In winter, from June to August, the surrounding mountains are covered in snow, enhancing the sense of grandiose glacial landscapes. The snow-capped peaks in the background, the bluish ice of the glaciers and the rainforests at the foot create a unique combination of climate zones, reminiscent of glacial eras. These landscapes are mesmerizing in their majesty and beauty. Eastern Siberia in winter is an area with diverse landscapes covered with snow, from mountains and taiga to steppes and tundra. Among its wonders are the Lena pillars in snow, frozen rivers, as well as frozen Baikal in its eastern part, and the Verkhoyansk Ridge. Bright sun, sparkling snow, and vast expanses create a feeling of being in a world where nature remains wild and mighty. Here it seems that you get into ancient fairy tales and legends, imbued with the magic of this region. Canada is famous for its waterfalls, and in winter many of them turn into ice cascades. The Niagara Falls are partially frozen, creating an incredible spectacle of ice hummocks and piles of ice at the base. Lesser-known waterfalls in national parks such as Banff and Jasper are also transformed into beautiful ice sculptures. These places attract winter hikers and ice climbers who want to see the splendor of frozen waterfalls in their unusual winter guise. In winter, the volcanoes and mountain ranges of Kamchatka are covered with snow, turning the peninsula into a land of snow giants. The cones of volcanoes, many of them smoking, shine white against the blue sky. The mountain slopes, covered in deep snow, become ideal for free riding and ski touring. The views of the volcanoes stretching over the horizon and surrounded by clouds create a majestic and photogenic spectacle that leaves an unforgettable impression of wild, untouched nature. Mount Shambhala, a sacred peak such as Beluga in the Altai Mountains, becomes even more mysterious and majestic in winter. Covered with snow, it becomes impregnable, and its image acquires even deeper symbolic meaning. Snow and ice enhance the feeling of solitude, giving the place a mystical atmosphere. The snow-covered landscapes around it create a sense of spirituality and secrecy, as if the place were in another world beyond the reach of ordinary people. Japan has snow and ice festivals in winter, the most famous of which is in Sapporo. These festivals provide an opportunity to see giant ice sculptures created by skilled artisans. In the evening, when the sculptures are illuminated, they transform urban spaces into fairy tale galleries and palaces. Combined with the natural ice formations in Hokkaido, these man-made ice creations create an incredibly beautiful winter atmosphere, filling the city with magic and enchantment. The snowfields of the Arctic are vast, monotonous expanses covered with snow and ice, stretching to the horizon under the polar sky. Absolute cold and silence reign here, broken only by the wind. In the light of a polar day or during the northern lights, these fields can take on amazing colors. This is a place where you can feel the scale of the planet and the harshness of its polar regions. Feel yourself among pristine, untouched nature. The lakes in the small Duchy of Luxembourg, located in Western Europe, can be covered with ice in winter. Surrounded by hilly landscapes covered with forests and fields, Luxembourg's frozen lakes create tranquil and picturesque winter landscapes. The ice on the lake, the shores and forests wrapped in snow, the quiet atmosphere of a small European country in winter decoration create a feeling of coziness and fairy tale. Mont Blanc is the highest peak in the Alps, 48.08 meters, in Western Europe. In winter, its mighty massif and surrounding peaks are covered in a thick layer of snow and ice, glistening in the sunshine. The views of Mont Blanc from nearby resorts or from high above are breathtaking. It is a symbol of mountaineering and the majesty of the mountains. The snow-white peaks of Mont Blanc, often shrouded in clouds or surrounded by a halo of light, look solemn and impregnable, the epitome of mountain beauty. In the mountainous or hilly areas around Chattanooga, if temperatures drop low enough with high humidity, rocks can become covered in frost. Frost forms a thin, brittle coating, turning dark rocks into white, sparkling structures that appear ethereal. This phenomenon, especially against a winter forest or sky, gives the rocks a special, fleeting beauty, as if they were temporarily transformed into sugar or crystal sculptures. New Zealand, especially the South Island, has mountainous areas with glaciers and snowy peaks. If you imagine an island with white cliffs or beaches, e.g. white sand of volcanic origin, that is covered with snow in winter, it would create an unusual contrast. White snow on a white background washed by cold waters could look surreal and minimalistic, like an abstract winter painting. The hilly landscapes of Scandinavia are covered in a blanket of snow in winter. The soft outlines of hills covered in snow create smooth lines on the horizon. The forests on the slopes stand in white decoration. Small farms or cabins buried in snow add coziness to this landscape. The Scandinavian winter hills are calm and serene, offering great views for cross-country skiing, allowing you to enjoy the silence and beauty of Nordic nature. Rice terraces in the mountainous areas of Japan may be covered with a layer of snow in winter when the fields are not cultivated. The frozen steps of the terraces covered with white snow against the backdrop of winter mountains create a geometrically regular, yet natural and picturesque landscape. In the case of terraces formed by mineral springs, as in some geothermal areas, their appearance in winter can be particularly interesting because of the steam contrasting with the cold air and snow. Snow in the Sahara Desert is an event so rare that its occurrence is considered a true miracle. If the dunes and rocky plateaus of the Sahara were covered with a thin layer of snow, it would be one of nature's most incredible and fleeting spectacles. The contrast of golden sand or red rocks with white snow, especially in the low sun, would create a fantastic, almost unreal landscape that would instantly melt under the first rays of the sun. In Karelia, especially near water bodies and under certain weather conditions, frost with fog or rain, trees can become covered with a thick layer of ice or frost. This phenomenon is called ice or frost. As a result, trees become glistening, brittle sculptures whose branches may break under the weight of the ice. A forest covered with ice looks like an enchanted forest, as if woven from crystal. In the sunlight, it shines with millions of lights, creating a truly fabulous sight. Ice Beach in Iceland is not just a beach covered in ice, but a place where icebergs from the Jökulsárlón ice lagoon are carried by the waves onto the black volcanic sand of the Atlantic coast. Transparent and bluish blocks of ice, resembling huge diamonds, are scattered across the dark sand, creating a stunning contrast. In winter, when the temperature is cooler, the icebergs can be larger and the ice sculptures last longer, making this beach one of the most photogenic and fabulous places in Iceland. The winter expanses of Altai are endless snowy plains in the steppe and forest steppe regions, deep snow-covered river valleys and foothills wrapped in a white cover. Against the background of blue sky and shining snow, silhouettes of mountains on the horizon look especially majestic. Winter Altai offers opportunities for snowmobiling, skiing, exploring life in the secluded villages. It is a world of space, silence, and frosty air, where you can feel the scale and severity of Siberian winter. The valleys of the Ural Mountains are covered with snow in winter. Depending on the region of the Urals, northern, middle, southern, they can be either deep, taiga-covered valleys or wider forest steppe valleys. Snow-covered forested mountain slopes frame the valleys. Rivers freeze, forming ice covers. The Ural valleys are quiet and picturesque in winter, offering opportunities for winter walks, ski trips, and getting acquainted with the beauty of the Ural nature in its winter colors. Winter nature is full of wonders and mysteries that can be discovered if you only allow yourself to look at the world with wonder. Each of these winter landscapes is not just a picture from a distant land, but a reminder of how amazing and diverse our earthly journey can be. If you enjoyed this journey through Winter Wonderland, be sure to leave a comment and share this video with your friends. May the magic of winter warm you on the coldest days, and may each new discovery fill you with inspiration.